then, let's talk. So, One Punch Man, the big one, the consecutive punch review, we'll call this one, because it's one punch after another, because I have been late for a while. So let's talk about what's going on in One Punch Man. This review is just going to pretty much cover everything that happened between Tatsumaki and Psychos' whole interaction and fight, up to the ending of My Mask and Blast. Because there was some big old stuff there, because I've recorded a reaction for 136. 137 has just been released, and I haven't touched that, and I don't really know what's going to happen, so I will try my best to keep that. And maybe I'll do a live reaction of 137, but I've still got to do a review of 136 before I do that, so we'll just see how we go on. Any case, chapter starts off. I guess I'll leave Timecodes at the bottom actually quickly as well, just so I can do this too. Actually, can I just gush for a moment? So, like, my excitement isn't there as much as it normally is because it's a few months old, although this chapter is very good. However, they did leak, well, they didn't leak, they released the volume cover for volume 23 earlier. How sick does he look? Focus on that, Matt. Oh, my boy looks amazing. Wait. Matt, just put it in. Just, why are you tapping that? He looks so good. Chapter starts off with Tatsumaki and Psychos having their little stare down. Tatsumaki very quickly figures out what's going on with Psychos because she's growing bigger, so she goes to attack the roots, which I think is actually a bonus for talking about Tatsumaki's smarts. But immediately, before she can do anything, Tatsumaki is stopped because Psychos is more powerful than her, as she so describes herself. And this is where we start off incredibly strong with this chapter, is this whole interaction is good, but most importantly, it's the energy beam. We love a bit of the energy beam because how Murata did this is so good, because in stories, like at least in anime and manga, I'm not like I don't really get the theories behind, I don't know, behind paneling and everything like that. However, I can tell you at the very least that if something's a double spread, it means, hey, that's the whole page, you must pay attention to this. So Murata used that for emphasis, and he got us and he got us and he got us, because the first beam is like, poof, massive, amazing attack. Does like, you're like, whoa, that's a big beam, you know, like look out, Dwarf Tatsumaki. Next time, that's a big beam. It not only does that, look at the size it's coming through the ocean. Ultimate thing about it though, whoa, the battery's dying already. Cool, that should be fine. So, any case, as it goes on, like I said, this is just so good because obviously this feat is amazing, but it just adds to it just to make you go, pay attention. This is a feat that is cutting the planet, a slice of the planet. She sliced off a bit of the planet, you know, and just adding that bit of detail makes it so much better. Just to see, like, for that impact, you know. And actually, just to follow it up, one of my favourite bits of that whole thing actually is the look afterwards Tats gives, just like she turns and it's like super dark and shaded, and she's like, you want to go? It looks so good. Like it's all done very well. And then of course she goes on to talk about how she's this. I knew this vision was true. It's the apostle of. I was chosen for this. She's like, chosen? What do you mean? And then we get into more of the Psychos backstory bit too. Not the Psychos backstory, but at least how she got this massive boost of power. Like it isn't just simply from combining. And as we get the flashback to when Orochi and Psychos were fighting for power, we then get to see how that turned out, which was, you know, whatever happened between them. Like, I guess if we look at it like this, like monsters are at their darkest point when they transform. You know, when they're at their absolute darkest or their lowest point in life, which we have to assume is what it is, whether something bad's happened to them on purpose or if things they've done to themselves, that's when they monsterize. So I guess it's kind of like a second, well, not a second rebirth because it didn't happen to Homeless Emperor, but at the very least we get to see what happens when characters interact with each other. Like, no, what are you on about, you idiot? When someone's at their absolute lowest. I guess for Psychos, it was, you know, she was going to have everything taken away from her, all her hard work, all her dedication, all came to this point where God would allow to see her, because we have to assume this is God. However, obviously the form is different from us, from what we've seen before, because when Homeless Emperor met God, as long as it's the same being, it might not even be anything with Homeless Emperor, but I'm going to assume because they both have described this being as God, that it's the same kind of person to, like, how God has appeared before them, because to Homeless Emperor, God was just a man. You know, like, it was like a faint man, but it was like not a clear image, but there was a being there that he was interacting with, apparently. Whereas with Psychos, it is more like, first of all, I want to say another double spread. I want you to pay attention to it, because this is a big thing. Obviously, the art's gorgeous, and it's like, I love it, because it's like an evil kind of twisted sun is the best way to describe it, because it's got like all these contorted and twisted faces on the inside. And I mean, I'll pull up that picture there, and obviously pull a picture of the sun. It's not like a surprise for this, but I think that's just symbolism to be like, you know, if this is God, this is a true power, because obviously we've seen the power boost it gives, like a Homeless Emperor to make Homeless Emperor from nothing to a dragon level threat. It's incredible, but if not, then it's also this being here, and honestly the community isn't. Community's kind of, I'm trying to keep back, but then the community's like, it's God, it's God. So that's kind of where my ideas come from. Is at the same time, just for representation, is the sun, obviously, big ball of energy, is the source of all life. This looks like the anti-sun. So just being like pretty much like an opposite sun, the source of death. So is this like the ultimate, is this a way to build up like the ultimate kind of villain more than anything? Like, I guess maybe if there's ultimate villain, maybe it can't even interact, maybe because like obviously that'd be a question of why it hasn't done anything before. Maybe it needs like an apostle or like something basically to channel its energy through. Maybe they're not for Homeless Emperor, so Homeless Emperor can't beat Tatsumaki, so it's like, oh, Psychos and Orochi, maybe there's something there between them too to take over or do whatever this being wants to do. That's, if that makes sense. That's what I get from that image, at least, more about like, you know, this being like the big bad, at least, until something comes along and goes, God who? and then I'll be an idiot. And as she talks about it, like she talks about how she wants to be this being of unmatched, you know, she's going to be the final step of evolution. She's going to be the planet itself, and we see like these disturbing images of her roots like growing across the planet, absorbing people, absorbing the earth itself until she becomes it. And then we get this cute little, we get Adam and Eve, and she's like, I am the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega kind of thing. And what I like is as Psychos is talking for a lot of this and is looking very elegant and extravagant, and then you just get that one little panel of Tatsumaki like, hey, what? You stupid or something? It's just like, just the difference between them, like in their attitudes is great, because obviously Tats has got power, and maybe because Psychos, it's always that kind of thing, like the truly strong recognize strength. And it, like, not even just like as like the true strong recognize other people who are strong, but even like in the sense of Tatsumaki, who, one of my favourite panels of this, looking back, was actually when she's talking back to Psychos, and she's talking about, hey, like, oh, well, you want to be this, you know, this all-powerful being that's alone in the universe. That sounds kind of boring. And then, in a way, like, at least to me, there's like that panel where she's hovering above everything, and that perfectly represents what she's all about right there, because she's on her own, she's glowing, but she's far above the skyline. So the best way I see that is, you know, as Tatsumaki as a character, that suits her perfectly. She's someone who sees herself as above others. She doesn't want to be away from others completely because of her connection to Fubuki, which is why they're down there, and other people as well. She wants other people to recognise how great she is. She wants to be different, but a good different. She glows, she stands out. You know, she's above people, but in a good way. That's how Tatsumaki sees herself, so that's how she wants to be perceived by other people too. The last thing I'll talk about from this chapter more than anything, just before the fight really begins, is those hints it gives towards the backstory of Tatsumaki and Psychos and Fubuki is more like what they've done. Obviously, her rebuttal to her saying, you know, being alone in the universe sounds stupid, which is what I mean about strength, like strength, recognizing strength. But more than anything with this too, is she's like, well, you know, you must recognize that, you know, hey, why was I chosen and not you? You know, why was I done like. What Psychos obviously rebuttals are like, you know, you have outstanding psychic ability, yet I was chosen, not you. Surely that seems odd, more like I'm a chosen one kind of thing, but then that goes back to that point of, you know, at the same time, the places that Psychos has been to is different to the places that Tatsumaki's been to. So it adds that different kind of perspective. And then obviously, she starts talking about, you know, if you had only heeded my warnings instead of becoming like these heroes, then things might have been a different future for us. And she's like, warnings? So this is something that Tatsumaki doesn't either remember or know about, so it has to be something between Psychos and Fubuki, which is obviously, you know, those hints towards that. And obviously, when she's thinking about Fubuki, she's thinking about Fubuki not like as we know her now as the grown adult, as a teenager or as a preteen. You know, she's like a middle school or high school uniform, so they've known each other, they're childhood friends at least, or they've known each other from back in the day. We know that Tatsumaki was imprisoned for some reason, and that's why she feels quite. That's why she was like, you know, that's why she was kind of. Oh, what are you saying, you idiot? We know Tatsumaki was kind of imprisoned as a child, but we don't really know much about it. So at some point they broke out, and I guess Fubuki managed to live a somewhat normal life because of that. I guess. Because they don't really look different, and they don't really have any, like, unlike similar features. Could Tatsumaki and Fubuki be not actual sisters? like stepsisters. Maybe like Tatsumaki end up saying for Buki one day is like, right, you're my little sister. That's off the top of the old noggin. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it's possible. It's been done before, like in One Piece, but at the same time, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not against it. I'm just not saying like that makes sense. There's nothing concrete to the story that makes me go, that makes sense, you know? Apart from the fact they don't particularly look similar. Obviously, with Tatsumaki being a lot older and for Buki being young, like a few years younger, but at the same time, just their bodies alone, you know, that's the best way to look at it. Like, just how they look physically is just a massive difference. But I will say, one thing that I've really enjoyed before I go to talk about the fight itself is these chapters, especially since we hit the Monster Association, have really kind of changed my opinion of Tatsumaki. When she first got introduced, she was a brat, she was a child, she was annoying. I was just counting down the days for Saitama to meet up with her and put her in a place. But it's been like that with a few characters. However, my opinions have changed on them over time, and this is what I have to give credit to Warner Murata's story more than anything, is that I've got to a point where I really actually like her. But when she's like, you know what, you can't just assume. Like, psychics get used all the time. This is what we are. Like, you know this. So, once again, hint towards that backstory, but then she goes, you know, don't ever assume someone's just going to swoop down and save you. Which I really like, because it reminds me of Saitama. Flashback to Saitama versus Fubuki when he's talking to her about what a hero does. It's like, you know, a hero fights whether they're on their own or in a team, you know. Whether against 100 people or one person. Don't look down on heroes, you moron, you know, this is what a hero is supposed to be. So, like, Tatsumaki gets it. She gets that, you know, I can't assume that people are going to come help me. That's not an excuse for a fight. That's not an excuse for me to lose a fight. Is, oh, well, I thought you were going to come help me. I have to do things on my own. And, like, it's things like that. I like that attitude she's got. It's good stuff. And then, of course, the fight starts. How does the fight start? Oh, sure, I'll just shoot dragons out my tower, and lasers are flying everywhere. Then yeah. Good job, Matt. It's been really back in the swing of things with these reviews. It's a different day, but it's still the same vidya. Ooh. Then we get into the big fight with Tatsumaki and Psyrochi. And oh boy, what a start to the fight, where they're obviously just like launching beams at each other. It's very good. Fight starts between Psychos and Tatsumaki, and there are obviously beams blasting everywhere. Once again, double page. I was like, wow, look at all these big attacks happening everywhere. And Tatsumaki, well, actually, fair play to her again, thinking like a hero's like, right, I've got to make sure the beams actually don't hit the ground, because then it will affect the people. But then she looks around and she actually sees King taking Tario out of there. He's like, oh wow, he's got a hostage. You'd expect of King. He's leaving me to handle this so he can get on with his business. And I really do, if there's something I want to see more of, it's the relationship between Tatsumaki and King, because as we know, Tatsumaki doesn't really respect a lot of people, look out for a lot of people, yet we know that she at least respects King and sees him as a hero and as someone who can hold his own. So, mostly, I'd like to see a relationship between Tatsumaki and King, not necessarily in a romantic sense. If it gets romantic, that's fine, but just them interacting more with each other, because as we know, it's one of the few people she actually respects, and like, if Tatsumaki's got something in her head, then King might be actually someone who can convince her using his influence. And eventually, I would like to see that build up, because eventually when the truth does come out about Saitama, and I imagine King will actually play a big part in that, how will Tatsumaki react to knowing that, like, this one person that she trusts, like, and she feels like, I can count on King, King is someone I can count on, is a liar, you know? I feel like there's something there too. And maybe there'll probably be something there too with Genos, because now she feels like I can count on Genos, and then she's like, oh no, Saitama's my master, and I just feel like it's going to cause distrust, but in an understandable way for someone who's distrusting, you know? So I hope there's something there too. Any case, as it goes on, of course, Philip and I personally love this fight. Is obviously, you know, the beams are firing everywhere. I love when Tatsumaki, like, she actually solves two problems at once. She has an attack for Psychos, but also causes, like, the waves to calm down, because she lifts mountain-sized boulders up in the air, and it's so small, but when she's just like, I should taste that, but when she's just like, get it, and like that little smirk on her face as she's got them, boom, 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 and these mountains are flying out. I'm like, oh, okay, this is the fight we're getting to, and it's even better. Something that I love that Murata does as an artist is he tries at least just to mess up, like, I guess, like, camera angles. Something I loved, like, it's one of my favourite things he does it in a later chapter as well, he's done it before, is like when he has, like, the persistent shot, so that shot where the boulder is flying towards Tatsumaki, and we keep on that perspective. No, the boulder, Tatsumaki shooting the boulder, she's dipping diving, and then, like, we get that one of the boulder, like, zooming right past as if it's like a camera there, and then obviously instead of like moving to a different angle, we still just see it from that same angle. It looks really good, and I'm happy to see that. But of course, Doesn't work on Psychos because Psychos is just obviously, like, the fight's still kind of just getting started for them. She separates the boulder, no problem. Of course, Psychos and then has that glamorous pose where she's like, is that all you've got? But she's got a vein there, so it's not like she's having necessarily an easy time. She's at least getting annoyed with what Tatsumaki's doing, you know? Like, I guess she thought she was like this untouchable god, and now that someone's actually, even like her ultimate enemy at this point, Tatsumaki, is still fighting back, it's still a problem for her. So, of course, we carry on with it, and like, they in fury, they both strike at each other, and that's also just a small bit which I oh, you got, and Tats just gives that look back of like, oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. Boom! And then lasers flying everywhere, clouds and smokes going everywhere, it's this big old tornado, and then everyone's just watching in awe of what's going on. Like, everyone's just like, damn, this is crazy. And they're like, wow, look at all that red and green, and I'm like, man, this is gonna look so good if they ever get to it in an anime perspective. But what I love so much about the community is when I'm thinking about that, they're all like, oh, you want to see it in colour? Well, we already used to have like 30 variations of it, and it's gorgeous, and they're all so good. This community is awesome for that alone. Like, especially when you point out the red and the green, it's so great to imagine, but then they're like, you don't have to imagine it if you don't want it. We can just show you what it looks like, and I'm very grateful for that. So meanwhile, obviously as this is all going on, we then get to that point of the tornado again, where Tati is dodging, she's ducking, she's dipping, she's diving, she's dodging. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge an energy beam fired by a dragon. Any case, there's a moment where Psychos is like, I've got you now, Tatsumaki, haha, there's your energy, boom, energy beam. No, it's actually like a boulder doll that Tats disguised, and she secretly went into her and she was like, see you, bubble boobs, and she wrecks her. She just demolishes her. And then we also just get to see, I guess, a more minute part of Tatsumaki's ability. So basically Tatsumaki isn't just like big attack, big attack, big attack. She can be more technical when she needs to be. Like, she's capable of disguising her energy and Pantaco energy and something else, where someone as powerful as Psychos is like, actually that's her, when it's actually not her at all, and she disguised herself and went down, she figured it out. Tats is very smart, as we're seeing. Basically, my whole point by the end of this is, why isn't she S-Class rank 1? Like, this is something I'll get to when I get to talking about him at the end, but I guess I could talk about it a bit now, is basically... No, we'll wait to the end. So, as the fight carries on, she thinks the fight's over, because obviously she's done a tornado move on her, she's spun around, she's twisted her body and conformed it into nothing. That's when the Orochi part of Psyrochi takes over, and this is what I actually love a lot about what Murata does, is he likes to make, if there's whatsoever looks good visually, he will at least give them moments where, when they're down and out, they will look hideous and disgusting. So I think of like, well, basically look bad. So I think of like Phoenix Man, there was the Medusa one, there was, obviously now we've got Psyrochi on this list too. These moments where they're supposed to be like renowned for their beauty and they panic, and then they look feeble and weak and just terrible, which is what he's done here. Well, not like weak, because at this point it's like, you know, I'd be calling it Psychos, but it's actually Psyrochi, as we know, because it's Psychos plus Orochi combined and multiplied. So it's good to see at least the Orochi side take over a bit more, as like you know, when Psychic doesn't work, let's just go full monster, as he twists the body and stabs Tatsumaki in her hands, and she can't do anything and shocks her. And obviously we get that split, and like, that's one of my favourite panels about this whole thing, is when you have Psychos and Orochi like split right down the middle, right there. We get to see, like, you know, the Orochi side take over more, as like, you know, Psychos is battered and bruised, but then Orochi, he's showing on that side, like the eyes glowing, and he's like, you know, you didn't follow through, you saw me losing, but you didn't kill me, blah blah blah, so for the frames of my wrath. Okay. So Tatsumaki's pinned down, pinned by the hand, like she's been shocked, like it's looking bad for her, and then, hang on a minute, is that a blue dragon? My man Genos comes with the energy beam. He comes with the energy beam. The last person I expected to join this fight joins the fight. Well, actually, like, he was there. I did not expect him to do anything, but this is Genos, and this is something I've grown to love about Genos. It used to just be a trope of his that he'd always show up and he'd try something against the villain, and then he'd be like, okay, wait for Saitama to show up and then finish off the villain. No. He's like, ever since he took that moment at the end of Elder Centipede's fight, where he's like, I have to keep pushing myself to grow better, otherwise how can I live up to those expectations that Master set me? Once again, he shows up and he goes and he just saves Tatsumaki, he's up there, he's flying up looking sick, and then on a small note as well that I actually love, is in the background, when Light and Max and Snek are watching the fight, like, it shows that they're actually also helping out people, so where that beam lands down by them, and then, we look in the back when they're watching the fight at a later time, like you see like Heavy Kong and Smartman and Snek and Max, I'm very sure that's Smartman, they're all like moving rubble and trying to help people who might be trapped underneath there, so like fair play to them, even in the small times, like heroes are doing what they can to help out, and it's great. Meanwhile, of course, they go, is that a blue dragon? And the moment they say that, my expectation is incredibly high, because I'm like, Miranda, you gotta show us this blue dragon Genos, and he does, and oh boy, it's beautiful. And I just, once again, have to thank the community so much for making it look even better, because you got the reds, and the greens, and the blues, and oh my. Oh, it was sick. It was so good. So good. Oh boy, Genos is just that guy. Like, he just fucking goes for it. He gives it his all. And then when Tatsumaki's all like, Genos, Demon Cyborg, what are you doing out here? And then he's like, shut up, I'm doing this until Master shows up to save the day. I'm buying time for you. You do what you've got to do. I love that Genos is like, Genos was never really scared of Tatsumaki because he was like, Master isn't scared, I shouldn't be scared. But like, it's got to the point where now, like, Tatsumaki's starting to recognize Genos a bit now too. Obviously when, you know, he blocks the blast for her so she can get all the other people out of the way, and he's like, yeah, she's like, Demon Song, and you got that great panel course later on when he's like overheated and bleeding out, well, like not bleeding out, but like he's burnt out, and then she catches him and he's like, you're not bad, Demon Cyborg. And also when that, I'm just out of order here, but when later on, once again, what I'm talking about, like this monster side is like, oh, you villains are in my way, like you heroes are in my way, and then obviously like the sides of Psyrochi split and revealed the giant face, and it's like, oh, okay, this is what I like, because, you know, what, like, monsters are very calm and collected, but the moment doesn't go their way, they show their true side, their monster side, and it looks sick. So, on a small note as well, I guess if you want to look at Genos from a power perspective, we can now see that the 10-second period that he's at now allows him to fight briefly for a period with above dragon level threats, which is crazy, which says a lot about kind of Genos' current level, puts him around like a proper S-class level at least. Like, as we've seen, he's got no problem taking down demons these days, he's probably got a very good chance against dragons, but at his 10-second peak, he can probably take down almost any dragon threat because he can kind of compete with above dragons. Like, not like actually compete with them properly, but very least he is a decent support to have. He can hold off the beams of Psyrochi. Now, and that's obviously an amazing thing to say he can do. So, I guess in terms of where Genos might go from a power next, because if he keeps getting these power boosts, he's going to be absolutely insane. Before we know it, he will be an above dragon guy in general. And I know, like, Genos has always had, like, wicked growth, obviously, like, in space for a couple of days, Kusena works on it, makes it better with the new technology he brings back. But I think at this point, to make it more fair, to stop him from being like, basically, Genos getting to like god level strength, because he might get there very quickly at this point, is if they do instead have like maybe, what was I going to say? Maybe it's like, as we see, it's a 10-second time limit. Maybe it's about like, you know, just extending the time limit now. So this can become his norm. So eventually it'll be like, you know, maybe next it'll be a minute, then 2 minutes, then 10 minutes, and then to a point where like fighting's okay for Genos, and it'll like just keep working on this technology to get him to that solid level. And I guess you can say something at the end because she's like, I will teach you, as she splits open to the giant face, I will teach you what ultimate intellect will do. We then cut to Saitama and Monaco and or Oculette, as she's now known, Flashy Flash stuck under the ground, and then Saitama's hungry, she's like, hey, if you do your belt up tight, you know, it distracts you from the hunger. She's like, wow, you must be like the ultimate intellect or something, which I guess you are, like, once again, hey, he's the strongest being on the planet, so I guess to him, ultimate intellect isn't about, like, actual smarts, it's to do with, like, you know, ways to go through life, I guess, like, because that's, Saitama's looking for life hacks more than, like, than proper searches, if you know what I mean. Do you? Because I don't, so if you do, fair play to you. Psyrochi shoots her big beam. Genos shoots his big beam, the true spiral incineration cannon. And, like, this is, like, Genos' like, top feat, right? I mean, not actually beating a above dragon threat in a straight-on blast, but instead actually, like, but holding it off, you know? At the very least, with all his strength, he can hold it back, and more than anything, he was splitting it apart. Like, he was buying time for Tatsumaki, and it worked really well, because obviously, everyone got out of there, it was fine, we got a little moment with Atomic Samurai and Purple Prisoner. Still not fully sure how I feel about these jokes at this point. We get it. He's gay. Is there anything else? Like, you could do more with, like, I like the joke that he's gay is there, and that's fine, I guess, but I like more of the jokes where he's like, where he doesn't get what's going on, so he attributes him to being like this great person, like all the angel style stuff. He's like, wow, I'm evolving, I'm turning into an angel. Like, that's what I like about Puri jokes more than anything. Obviously, Darkshine is still in a ball and is a mess. We also have scenes of Genos, no, not Genos, of other characters getting out, doing what they need to. And then of course Genos, when everyone's out there, Genos is finally done with his beam, and this is where it all changes. This is where we see why she's S-Class rank 2, and why she should probably be higher. She shows up, and Genos is like, he's bought her time, and she's like, well done, Demon Cyborg, you bought me enough time, so I didn't do it for you. And of course, she finds another big beam, like, this will finish you off now! And then Tatsumaki, right? This is how, like, this, when I was talking about paneling before with, like, the big double spreads of, like, you know, oh, that's to emphasise power. This is kind of, like, the opposite of that, but just as effective, where it's only a small corner panel. She's holding Genos, but at the same time, now she's fully focused on the fight. Like, in a tiny panel, she flicks it off. She flicks off the big beam that took Genos all he's got to hold off. And she's, like, oh, she's sick, isn't she? She's so good. She's like, so, Psychos. Befriend my sister. Oh, that's a panel. That's when you know it's done. And even just showing what was happening, you know, and then we get, I mean, like, come on. Wow, Matt, you're really good at explaining things. That's exactly how they meant it. To really emphasise the strength of Tatsumaki is when obviously you got all these powerful characters being like, whoa, look at all this. She's really, like, Fubuki's like, she's intent on finishing it. And then, of course, we get to Sea City, and they're just like watching them like, what's going on with Sea? Is the map messing up? Like, no, the city itself is being twisted. And we get the cut. We see from the top how small the tower is in comparison. We see the surrounding city, the ocean. We see it all being, the landscape itself is being twisted. And she's so strong. Like, that's, cities are the size of countries in One Punch Man. She's twisted apart a country. And while it's probably not all of Z City, that's still a powerful thing to do. And then we get to see people's reactions to it. By the way, shout out to the underrated hero, Pig God. Like, the moment Child Emperor's in trouble, he bursts out of the rubble and he's like, let's go! And he saves Child Emperor. You gotta give it to him. And like, I know, and like in the future, he obviously he saved like all the people who were trapped underground too. Pig God, time and time again. Round of applause for Pig God, guys. Not that much. More. Just want more Pig God. Like, I want to see Pig God in an actual fight, but like, he's shown himself to be a pretty capable hero. He shows up, like, he was supportive of Child Emperor when Child Emperor did the stuff, like, once again, out of nowhere, boom, I just love he shows up out of nowhere. He's like, I gotta protect him. That's good on Pig God. Good guy, Pig God. As Tats is just twisting and ruining Orochi at this point. Like, we don't even really see Psychos react. There's that, obviously, the split faces again, but once again, it's Orochi who's twisted and writhed in agony because the roots have split up. And he's gone now, like, well, pretty much, like, but he's not gone because obviously we know about, like, the chase scene that happens afterwards, but still, it's good stuff. I'm just happy to see, Tats at full power. There's not a lot to talk about, I just think it's good. Maybe I'd have more to talk about if I was on time. Oh, also, Saitama's actually kind of had enough now because he thinks his house is going to get wrecked, so Saitama's probably going to show up soon enough, like, but I think that's our way of saying he's not out of the fight for too long, like, I mean, in terms of the fight, like, at least how I see it now is, well, Goro's on its way. I imagine, it's always how I've imagined it with this part of the fight. I imagine the executives would show up, then Goro would show up, and then Saitama would show up. But maybe that'll be a bit mixed up. Like, that's how I always initially planned it, but now Flashy is down there. It might be more like Goro and Flashy and Saitama show up around the same time, but at different parts of the story. So maybe while, like, one side of Z-City is, like, Goro, the other side Saitama, and eventually they'll come to meet in the centre. Yeah. And that's it for that chapter. And then we got the big one next. Different location, same video. Why'd you touch your hair? I need a haircut, haircut is what I need, hey. If I share with you my One Punch Man theories, I hate that bit. Won't you give a haircut to me? Yeah, it's a different location, but still the same video. Guys, I'm trying, you know, I'm trying to get this done. So, after, of course, Tatsumaki rings it out, we get to the next chapter, and guys, the moon, okay? Like the moon the moon, man, I should have like, I might have to have just a Pepe Sylvia moment about the moon one day. Because, well, to keep it short and simple, obviously after she brings it out, we see the moon in the background, and then of course we get a little panel focusing on the moon in particular. Why do we focus on the moon? Why does the battery run out at this point in time? I'll try and quickly cover these points. Basically, every time there is some great feat of power, I've noticed we at least see the moon in some regard to reflect, of course. I like to see, obviously, because of, it's always been a good detail that, like, especially at night time, the moon is always, like, the detail of the moon being jumped on by Saitama has stayed there, and it's been, like, effective. I think it's always been a good scale to show, like, at least, like, hey, this is a feat of power, I think, comparable to that, like, in terms of, like, this is really strong, whatever's going on. Like, we get it with this moment here, we get it with, like, when she blasted a slice of the planet off, I believe that was right there. Definitely one for the Millennium Emperor Nova, though, obviously. Like, it was there, and it was good. At least for, like, massive feats of power. Not necessarily, like, skillful, not necessarily skill, but just in terms of raw power. I mean, that's their way of saying this is strong, you know? It's just a subtle way, but of course at the beginning of this chapter we have a little panel focusing on the moon, and I want to know, is there more to the moon? Because there's definitely more to the moon in terms of what I think has effect on the world, because at the end of the day, the moon now has a massive hole in it. Like, there's very noticeable damage from the moon, and that appeared afterwards. No, it didn't take much to figure out that, hey, the moon looked normal until the day we had that massive attack on City A, and then all of a sudden, there's some damage to the moon. And if people looked at it right, and as we know, like, Drive Knight probably has connected to the organization, there's a good chance because of Drive Knight Gold, he has possibly Boris's body, and at the same time, short answer is I would not be surprised if the organization was somewhat aware of Saitama, and to me that's what I think they assume the bigger threats are. I could probably just do a video about the organization, but you know what I mean, like, because Metal Knight probably has ties to the organization as well, of course, and he's like, no, there's a bigger threat out there, there's someone else, like, worse than the Monster Association, which I can only assume to be Saitama, unless, of course, they assume it's something else, which they might do, to be fair. Like, they might go, hang on, this is actually, like, Blast, or this might be, you know, someone else. You know what I mean? There's a lot of factors out there that could explain, like, that could, like, ultimately just get Saitama off, like, free of any kind of consequences or watching eyes. So I'm fine with that if that happens, and then, like, Saitama's just a no-name to people, but at the same time I feel like that the moon, it's too big. It's the moon, and it's got damage. Even if they didn't notice, someone's going to notice and go, why does the moon have damage to it? You know, it's not rocket science. But you know what is rocket science? Turning yourself into a jet, and we carry on. So at this point, after of course using that massive attack, Tatsumaki just suddenly starts gushing blood out. And when I first read this, I was like, oh, thank goodness. But it sounds wrong to say that. But ultimately, it's mostly because if you look at Tatsumaki, like, she's absurdly powerful, and if there isn't some kind of drawback to the amount of power she's using, then it's a question of why aren't psychics? Psychics are absolutely broken, and why don't they just take over the world? Because no one could stop them if Saitama wasn't around. So it's good to at least have some form of a drawback. So apparently if she uses too much power, it can mess up her insides, at least, like, puts too much strain on her body, and obviously she's taken a lot of damage, like, well, we assume a lot of damage. She doesn't seem too physically, like, weakened by it at all, but at the same time, you know, she's been stabbed, she's been shot, she's been blasted, she's taken a lot, despite, like, how little she's reacted to everything. And, you know, I would not be surprised, of course, like, her main priority was getting hostages out. If it was a different situation, this whole fight would have gone pretty differently, I think, is, of course, if there was no hostages about, and it was just, like, a one-on-one with no one in the area, then I think this would have been a much more one-sided fight than what we saw. So, and I'm sure you guys do too. Psyrochi's like, I'm out of here, bye-bye, I'm gonna have to take some blood from the surrounding humans until I get strong enough to fight against Tatsumaki. Turns into this cool monster jet. Cool design, I like the idea of it, it's interesting. I don't really have a lot to say, it's sleek, it's cool, I like it. She goes to blast off, and then she's like, I love when obviously she uses a smoke screen, Tatsumaki's like, oh wow, I got caught off, she was like, oh, it's all gooey, wait, I sense 5 of them, because obviously Psyrochi has grown from this fight at least, and has learned, oh, I've learned a new trick because of you, thank you, bye. And she's like, oh, you think, well, I'll show you, and that face she pulls is so amazing, as she puts up the barrier, just like, she's been looking amazing for so long, and I think she looks amazing here too, just the grubby, like, oh, just face, it's great. And she puts up a big old barrier, surrounds everyone. Psyrochi's like, boom, 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 I'm gonna shoot you up, bam, 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 bam. Psych, I was actually using Rock Doll again. For some reason, you shot there when I was here. Oh my god. And then, oh man, when Tats is like, found you. I'm like, it's over, it's over. Tatsumaki has rose significantly for me. I know I've said this before, but from the start of this from the start of the arc, I like put her in tears. I probably would have put her in like D tier or C. Like, she was strong, but I didn't like her. Now I fucking love Tatsumaki. She's sick. She's A tier. I don't know what S tier is, but if she keeps it up, maybe. As it goes on. Meanwhile, before she can do anything, who shows up? It's Drive Knight, Mr. I don't have enough power. Can we just call Blast, please? Oh no, I can't defend you. Oh no. At this point, I do know that he does absorb the power of a city, and that's made clear. I'm like, okay, that's fine, I guess. But at the time when this chapter came out, I was not happy about Drive Knight. I was not happy about him. Him showing up, being like, trying to like shoot down, like, oh, I'm gonna get you because I'm gonna analyze your abilities, and then obviously showing the Iaian got caught. I was like, well, look who it is. Wow, you're all looking better, aren't we? I was like, it felt like if I was a teacher and I knew a kid hadn't come into school, and then I went out to get some lunch and I saw the kids hanging around outside of school, I would, and like they were absolutely fine. That's the kind of fury I felt, of just them trying to cheat the system like that. I was like, Drive Knight, stop. But of course, I know it, to be clear, I know it's, and it's fine at this point, but just to be clear, old Matt is not I don't know. Drive Knight's got a lot of cool abilities, but he's a bit of a stinker, ain't he? I do like that mode. I do like them talking about humanity evolution at the end though too, man. Like, she's like, I am the next step of evolution, and he's like, well, conflict is the peak of human evolution. That's how we grow, and then that's where the chapter ends, and then we go to the next one. This might have to do. Gosh, your forehead is massive. Yeah? We feeling this? No, we're not. Double Helix happened. It was good. It was cool. It was like, wow, look at that. They're both about technology and science and whatnot. So their beams made a double helix, and it's interesting like that. Genos lands down on the ground. Child Emperor is obviously caught off guard by this because, hey, Demon Cyborg isn't supposed to be here. He's not part of this operation. He might be the traitor. I don't trust Demon Cyborg. Would have liked to have seen something happen, at least between them. I imagine we will in the future, but I just mean in the sense of, like, right then and then, because obviously, but at the same time, Genos is not about wasting time at the moment, because he recognises the true threat, because he explained what's going on. He's like, Tatsumaki's just been fighting the boss of the Monster Association. You know, she's used a lot of power, she's keeping up the barriers, and Drive Knight's just come to help out, and I will do whatever I can. Please do whatever you can as well. Immediately they go into action, and Atomic Samurai's like, okay, I'll blast what I can. Once again, the underrated character, the underrated hero, Pink God, shows up, because it turns out he's actually kept the entirety of the rescue team and Arinki's private squad in his stomach. Spits him out, as well as Zombie Man, saving lives. He's doing a good job. He's helping people out, and when Iaian's struggling, he's like, damn, I'm not on S-class level yet, he's like, hey, the reason I managed to get them all together so easy is because you helped me out. You kept them all together, you kept them safe for as long as you could, and that helped me out too. Pig God's great! Where's Pig? I want to see Pig God kick some ass now, so Pig God can come and join those higher tier heroes. He's doing a mighty fine job. And as obviously this carries on, Iaian has this moment where he's like, I'm nowhere near S-class level, and he's struggling. And at this moment when he's struggling, just who he needs appears. And he looks really good when he does it, because like, damn it, my blade won't reach, we have to try something else. Because Atomic Samurai shows up, it's his back, and like, that's his ideal goal, you know? Like, he's above him, he's looking amazing, that's his hero, that's his master, that's his goal. As far as we know, and as far as it's presumed, you know, Iaian and Atomic, pretty much, they have the best. They have a genuine master-disciple relationship. Like, whatever your opinions are on, like, who's the better... I remember there being a discussion who was the better hero, like, who the better master and disciple was. Was it Bang and Garo, or was it Atomic and Iaian? And it's definitely Atomic and Iaian, because whilst I guess, like, you know, part of a master's job is to impart power onto it, of course, Garo is much drawn. Even back then, you know, I'd definitely say Garo would have won against Iaian. But like, being a master is more than just teaching someone how to be strong. It's also just teaching like about how to think, a way of life and things like that. And like, you know, he's there for Iaian. We saw this obviously from literally, it's like our first interaction we see between the two of them is when he sees his arms gone, he bandages, he tells him like, look after yourself. Oh. Hey dog. In any case, to sum it short, more than anything, you can just see from here that they've got a good relationship. The moment that Atomic Samurai sees that something's wrong with Iaian's like struggled, because he's really had to pull his weight down there. And I don't know, like, what you think of the redraws is fine, but definitely something that's done as a positive is that Iaian has become a better character, especially to me. Like, obviously his interaction with the Mind Mask, but even like with Narinki's private squad, and he's doing whatever he can to make sure that like he can push himself to his limits so he can grow stronger, because that's what his masters taught him, you know, like, just like he was like, well, keep cutting until it works, and in a way that's just keep pushing yourself further and further until you can do what you need to do, which is what Iaian's tried to do. And you know, he failed, but at the same time he somehow survived. And he failed, but it's not like a bad failure. He also did a lot of good stuff down there, you know. I think putting a Mai in his place, putting down taking down, like, helping with Narinki's private squad, I think he's done a lot of good stuff down there. So when just having Atomic Samurai recognise that he can see that he struggled, and him like going, hey, well done, you did a good job, helps him up on his feet. He's like, come on, help us out, you're part of the team, let's do this. And I love that, it's great. Meanwhile, cut over to Tank Top doing his Tank Top thing, because he has magic. What magic? It's Tank Top magic. And they're just like, whoa! All the other heroes are just in awe of, like, really? Tank Top magic? Genuinely, one of the top 5 characters I want to know more about. So as they noticed, there's a rescue helicopter on the way. They went to flag it down, but they obviously didn't know about the barrier either. Driving Light spots them, and instead of, I'm going to assume, he aimed towards the barrier on purpose so the helicopter knew and the heroes knew, even though they probably didn't know about the heroes. But at the very least, let's assume, for purposes, that he did, instead of, you know, actually trying to shoot down the helicopter, which you might have done because driving on might be over them. Tank Top Master sees this, and it's very quickly like, I've got to go there and help out. And let me do my thing. Moomin Rider, you guys take care of stuff here. I'll make it easier for you guys to get people out of here safely. Good luck to you. Good luck to you. I can't believe he Taopaipai it though. Out of anything, the moment he was tearing up the telephone tower, and when he went to throw it, I was like, fuck off. You're not doing this to me, Murata. As he does, he grabs the wire and just goes flying, and I'm like, you madman, how brilliant. That is amazing for Tank Top. I love what he did there, and I love the reaction for characters afterwards, like, wow, that's amazing, maybe I should start wearing a tank top. I would love it so much if in the future of the story, we then get to see how characters interact with each, like, basically, if just in the background, like, a few more heroes, like, maybe they're just wearing tank tops over their costumes, or they've slightly changed. What I'd personally love is, like, Stig was like, does the tank top even do that? And Lightning Max was there for it as well, so if he starts wearing a tank top, that'd be great. It would be amazing. Let's say Snake's fighting a monster, gets super damaged under his, like, in a special snakeskin suit. What is he wearing underneath? He's wearing a tank top for, like, the measure. He's backed into a corner, tank top saves him, and he's just like, arise, Tank Top Cobra. Mate, he's such a... This is what I mean, like, what I'm so interested in is this whole idea of the tank top more than anything. The fact that it motivates this man so much, a piece of clothing motivates a man to this degree. I want to know what got him to this point, and what... It's like a religion, I've said this before, but the way these guys talk about the tank top is like, it is like a deity. I need to know what it does for it. It's, I mean, like a Gurren Lagann moment. Sometimes the way he speaks about it is like that, but just like, don't believe in me, believe in the tank top who believes in you. Man, he's sick. Oh, I do like him though. I do like Tank Top. He's very good. He's very silly, but he has some of the best lines in the entire series. So I'm so ready for him to go join the fight. I just want some sick moments with Tank Top and him just like, I don't know what. It's difficult because of course from a power perspective we know he got beat by Garo. However, there were obviously handicaps to that fight, so there are obviously answers there too. Tank Top, I'm hoping, can do something good there. You know, it's going to be like, honestly, it's going to be like Metalbat going to the fight as well. Metalbat's on his way, but like we know Metalbat's injured and he probably can't fight at full capacity. So it's going to be interesting to see how characters like that are going to help in the fights more than anything. I hope it's good. Mate, if they pull off the ultimate trope with Tank Top Master and he's like, I can't believe I resorted to this, but this is probably like end series, he takes the tank top off and it's fucking weighted clothing, drops it. I'm talking skyscraper level. Dust goes up, and he's just a monster. He's the tank top god at that point. Oh, I'm very excited about Tank Top Master. Fair play to Genos, doing whatever he can. This is what I forgot about. I didn't even notice it until we were at the chapter. He's hanging off the side of the Monster Association, just blasting whatever he can, hoping it will hit. I gotta give it to him. Genos is sick. And now the next chapter, possibly. So once again, different location, but same review. But I decided to sit down for this one, genuinely, because I feel like I don't know, I've been standing up a lot in these. I just thought I'd try sitting down for a change, but we'll still have some fun, you know? Some would say we'll have a blast. Get it? Because blast is in the chapter! So, the last chapter of this review, 133, Disgrace and Foundation. So this is where this review is going to end. First of all, starts off with Drive Knight, and Drive Knight, this is where it explains to us that this is how he got to the fight, is he got all this energy saved up from... No, not saved up, he drained a lot of energy from the surrounding area. He got, like, there was a live cable. And he just took everything he could, and we saw like how much he needed. So at least for Drive Knight, we can either assume one of two things: either he needs a lot of power to run very quick, like to keep running, at least to keep up what he has to do, which makes sense because Drive Knight's technology is still the most advanced that we've seen in the series. Or basically Drive Knight's going to be in the fight for a while now. He's probably fully charged at this, so we don't have to worry about him. Maybe like you said before, when he took on against Iaian, like he was running low on power at that point when he took him on. So I guess we want to look at Drive Knight. That'll probably be the best. Like, this will be the best way to go, just kind of gauge even how much Drive Knight can do in an actual fight. Now, hopefully he's got full power, but if he has moments like, oh, my power's gone, like, I have to assume that he uses a lot of power. So, be interesting to see what goes on. However, the main chunk of this chapter is reserved for our boy Sweet Mask, and my Mask, and oh, isn't he sweet? No, they do such a good job of making him actually just not likable. Like, he's not a likable character. Like, and that's a good thing, because I like that he's not a likable character. That's my favourite thing about him, is I just like to hate a My Mask at this point, because a My Mask is someone who is confusing in a good way. Basically, he's a mysterious character. The problem with a My Mask, more than any... So, like, as we see, as Drive Knight is fighting and chasing Psyrochi up in the air, and My Mask is on the ground, he's recovering, he's out there, he's, like, huffing and gasping for air, and he's just, like, panicking because he's like, oh my god, they heard me, they heard me panic, I can't match that ugliness, what am I going to do? And then, obviously, he takes a look, and they're all just staring at him, and, to be honest, I think they're just staring at him because he's, like, obviously he's like, and they're like, oh, there's a My Mask. None of them are looking with any malice or intent, but to him, they are looking down on him. And I guess one thing that's interesting about a My Mask is, despite how popular he is, despite how famous he is, his rank, his influences in the association, like, he has some real self-confidence issues. Like, at the very least, he feels like people are constantly looking down on him, belittling him, like, trying to one-up him and prove that he's not as great as he is in some way. Like, he's like, I built this all up for a reason. And then when Child Emperor just goes up to him, he's like, oh, hi, Mr. My Mask, look, you're not looking too great. Would you want to maybe, go to the rear guard for now, just, like, to recuperate? And, like, which I think is fair. Like, Child Emperor, once again, is just trying to play the peacekeeper throughout all this, and he's trying to make sure that we're all on the same team, and even now at My Mask, once again, rather than trying to face himself and go, yeah, you're right, that's a good idea, just saying like, yeah, thanks for looking out for me, Child Emperor, he's going like, oh, I can't believe a child like you said that, but I suppose I have to accept that proposal. And then, of course, Child Emperor just like, whew, like keeping, like, he's like, okay, that's his fault. But even then, he's like, come on, man, come on, just do something. Just do something that makes me like you a bit more, which he does in the next chapter, but I'll talk about that when I review the next chapter. As the fight carries on, like, he looks at them and is just like, I've worked so hard to get to this position. I want to, you know, I will not let them look down on me, to the point, and this is where I'm like, what are you doing? He is really considering killing all of them, which, by the way, I kind of want to see a what if he tried, because I know, like, people like to bam out Atomic in the community, and My Mask is not touching Atomic. Can we just get that out there now? Like, he's not touching there. Like, if he thinks he could take on, but this is how, like, part of his mentality. He thinks he's so amazing that he could take on. So what was it? Pig God, Atomic, Zombie Man. I know it's weak and Zombie Man, but Zombie Man's he's actually naked at this point, so he's back up. Child Emperor, Darkshine, who's weakened, Purry. Like, this is the level of, like, arrogance he's at with himself. Like, despite having this is weird. I don't know if there's a way to describe it where you have such, is it just arrogance? Or pride? Or is he too, where someone like a My Mask, if someone knows, please let me know, is the idea of someone who is so full of themselves, yet at the same time thinks people are, like, I think it's just being a bit of a dickhead, to be honest. I wish I could put it better, but I think it's just that, you know? And once again, like I said, Iaian has gone up in ranks for me throughout this arc, and this here too, you know? He's got his problems with a My Mask, like, he knows he's not fully there, but he's being the hero. He's like, just like, hey man, you alright? And then that's when we see a certain someone, and I'm just going to talk about that at the end. I've just decided now, I'm going to talk about this at the end, and then maybe I'll do my whole another segment on its own about this. So, he has a relapse because of this character, remembering this moment, because he's met this character apparently, and I guess that it's, I mean, I don't want, it's Blast, we know it's Blast. Why am I trying to avoid saying Blast? I think you're trying to wait for the ending too, but like, Blast shows up and is like, hey man, are you okay? Like, as a flashback to him. It was on a My Mask because obviously it really does emphasise how important Blast was to him. Look at his face, it looks like there's quite a few cracks in his face too, as if like, he was probably really in a dark place. I know he's in a dark place now, but he was in a similar position before, and like those words reminded him of that. And like obviously as Blast is coming down, like Blast from there is like, he is like a blinding light towards him. He's a light of hope. And My Mask fights against these dark urges he has by literally smashing his head into the ground. He goes, I forgot the first thing about being a hero and being cool and being popular. The best thing about it is perseverance. And he gets up and he starts walking. And I guess that's fine, and that's fine, you know, like he's trying to resist these urges, but they're there. And I think, like most of us, we want to see what happens when he probably succumbs to an urge like this. Or what is, like, we obviously want to know more about My Mask because there's a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing going on where, of course, there's one side of him human, one side of him monster. And we want to know what, obviously, why he's like this, but also why he's also just so ready to be this, you know? I guess that would also explain, like, why he is the way he is, at the very least, is because of, like, the monsters. If there's a monster inside of him, that explains his arrogance, his perseverance, where at least, like, if other characters have shown that they are arrogant, they've also shown that they are heroes, like Tatsumaki, for example. Like, Tatsumaki is, obviously, she's shown time, like, again, like, she's very confident in her power, rightfully so, but at the same time, her priority was not beating the villain, her priority was saving the people and getting the hostages and the other heroes out of there. Whereas a My Mask's priority is, the My Mask is just like, no mercy. Like, we know this, like he was going to obviously, no mercy against the monsters, which is fine. We know obviously in the original redraws, he tore through Narinki's private squad, and of course in the redraws he was fully ready to until the Iaian showed up. And of course now he's there, and want to know more about him, especially because of his connections to Blast. Cool. Blast! Let's just, okay, I think I'm going to use this end of the review just to talk about Blast, because I've got a lot of thoughts on him, and I guess what, I don't know if I've got a lot of thoughts on him. I just have ideas about him, and I want to say first of all, his design is sick. I love it. I love his hair. In particular, I love like the shaved bits at the side and the spikes. He's got like the proper traditional like superhero costume like Saitama. Love the boots. I don't know why the boots are so sick, but they are. Like I'm ready to see more of Blast. He's looking cool. Really cool. And I guess this is just, I'm just going to use this moment to rant about Blast. Like, so, one thing I think that's going to be super interesting, and like, it's especially now we're learning more about him, and the things we've seen in this arc is, you know, there's things that just don't change apparently in the Hero Association. So, for example, Tatsumaki is S-Class rank 2, and if Blast shows up, he shows up when he wants to. He is S-Class rank 1, right? Tatsumaki, time and time again, she comes in, she puts the work in, she gets it done, you know? She is, when all the other heroes are struggling, she's the one who stands up and gets it done. Like here, we saw how easily she can handle dragon level opponents. And Blast doesn't show up until then, so he only shows up when he decides to show up, right? So why is he S-Class rank 1? This question just keeps getting bigger and bigger. It was just like, oh well, Blast must have done something great, but to the point where Tatsumaki's doing things like this, and if after this arc is done, she is still S-Class rank 2, that question just becomes an even bigger burning question in my mind. It's a bonfire of a question, because why? Why is he rank 1? What has he done that's in that position of S-Class rank 1? Once again, also with King. King is recognised as the strongest human in the world. Blast is still #1 though. This is what's crazy about them. And of course, like, so full theory, like no, not theory, I don't have any proof, full speculation, like, this is just what I think Blast could be and what I think he is. Doesn't mean there's nothing to prove this, but I feel like there's something there, because first of all, he's drawn in that traditional superhero style like Saitama. They've got the cape, they've got the suit, and it's all there. However, Blast is more advanced and better. So, for me, what I would find interesting with Blast, just to try and look at it in a different character way, is if Blast is what Saitama wants. Like, Blast has the life that Saitama actually wants. Like, Blast is strong. Like, he gets satisfaction from his fights. He helps people. He's a real hero, right? He's got the life that Saitama desperately wants, you know? Whereas Blast, maybe he's starting to grow bored, and maybe that's too similar to the Suiryu stuff, like where he's getting bored with his strength, but he's seeking something more. Maybe he's worried that he can't protect everyone, so he's looking for more strength. So maybe at that point, Saitama is kind of his goal at that point. I mean, obviously we have no idea about like how these two would interact. But at the very least, like, he is somewhat of a positive force. Like, Blast is not necessarily, as far as I know, he's not a bad guy. Blast is a My Mask guiding light. He uses him kind of as his compass to be a hero. However, like, his perseverance. So, obviously that's highlighted there, in particular perseverance. So, whether that's something Blast told him, or whether there's anything there, I don't know, like... The fact is, we are now seeing more of Blast. Like, he was a silhouette before. That's all he was, and obviously his reputation was there. We've obviously got... There's been a lot of talk of Blast recently. Like, obviously, from the end of L Centipede, where we saw that silhouette, obviously Drive Knight keeps going on about Blast, because I think Drive Knight was designed by the organization to fight Blast as, like, you know, he's the G for Blast. G0 maybe, or G1. Whereas... someone like why am I saying Gar? Gar's not nothing to do with this chapter. He looks really cool, is how I'm going to end this. Like, I've got the design here. I love the boots. I don't know why the boots in particular, but I look at the boots and I'm like, they're just cool hero boots. I'm fine with that. He looks good. He looks very traditional superhero as well. Like, Saitama is like a parody of superheroes, right? So obviously his suit's a bit more ridiculous, but he looks traditional superhero. He's got that Superman vibe about him. So maybe, in terms of what he can do, maybe he is traditional superhero. For all we know, maybe he is like basically Superman. Maybe he's got the strength. Maybe, I doubt he can fly. Flight seems a bit extreme, but he's got some cool boots. Maybe they're jet boots. Maybe he will just mirror Superman and his abilities. Once again, no proof, but there's something about Blast that, wow, the hype is there and the design is there. Like, I just hope Blast is fully, I want to see Blast! He's really cool in his design, and I just hope he holds up as a character as well, which I have full faith in, because one is good with his characters, and Murata's great at bringing them to life. So, yeah, I think that's all for these for the review. So this is the big review ending now. So, if you watched this, and if you did, wow, thank you. Cheers. How long is this? Oh my. Wow, that's not good. Well, it's good. I have been away for a long time. But if you didn't watch this, I'd like to hear your opinions on stuff in general. I am not caught up. I know there's a new chapter. I've read the next chapter. I have not read the latest chapter, which I think is 137 at this point. I'll do a review on the next one soon. I've recorded a live reaction for it as well, so we'll see how we get on, but I'm going to try and catch up pretty quick so I can stay on top of it. But yeah, that's it. I'd like to hear what you think. What's your ideas on Blast as well? Especially Blast. Like, there's not, like, generally, okay, break it down. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this whole Tatsumaki Psyrochi fight. Anything in particular you're like, oh, I like this, or what about this? I'm not a webcomic reader, no webcomic spoilers please. Same with Blast. I don't know what's going on with Blast, but what are your thoughts on Blast? Yay or nay, a My Mask? To be honest, I'm surprised if it's a yay. But if it is, I'd like to hear why. And then we hit the button, using our mind. Ooh, and then, wow, what an ending. You ready for that one through, Matt?